They say the loudest voice in the room holds the most power. We've been taught that confidence sounds like volume, that leadership looks like performance, that genius announces itself. But what if the most extraordinary minds among us never announced anything at all? Somewhere right now there is someone sitting in the back of the room, not because they don't belong at the front, but because they've already seen the whole picture and they're quietly deciding what to do with it. They don't interrupt, they don't compete for attention, they don't need the applause. And yet when they finally speak, everything changes. Who are these people? Why does their silence feel so intentional? Why does their stillness carry the weight of 1,000 unspoken thoughts? This is not a story about introversion. This is not about shyness or fear or being overlooked. This is the psychology of the quiet genius, and why in the end they almost always win. Let's begin. There is a particular kind of silence that doesn't feel empty. It feels full, dense with thought, alive with observation, humming with something that hasn't found words yet. Most people, when they go quiet, they've run out of things to say. But the quiet genius goes quiet because there is simply too much to say, and they refuse to say it carelessly. Watch them in a crowded room. They're not awkward. They're not disconnected. They are scanning. Every conversation around them is a data point. Every micro-expression, every shift in energy, every word chosen or deliberately avoided is being processed at a depth most people never reach. Where others hear noise, they hear pattern. Where others feel chaos, they feel undercurrent. They are not absent from the room. They are the most present person in it. There's a psychological term for this: deep processing. It means their nervous system doesn't just receive information. It holds it, turns it over, examines it from angles most minds never consider. They don't react to the surface of things. They wait for the layers beneath. And that waiting, that stillness, looks to the outside world like passivity, like disengagement, like someone who has nothing to offer. But it isn't passivity. It is precision. Think of a lens, being slowly, carefully focused. The image isn't blurry because the camera is broken. The image is blurry because it is still finding the exact right point of clarity. That is the quiet genius. In the middle of thought, not confused, not lost, focusing. And when that focus lands, when they finally speak, or write, or create, or decide, it lands with a weight that surprises people who only ever saw the silence because they were expecting small talk. They were expecting fumbling. Instead, they received a thought so precise, so considered, so quietly devastating in its clarity, that the room goes still, and the quiet genius simply returns to watching. This is the interior life most people never see. A world inside a world. A mind that never truly rests. Not because it is anxious, but because it is alive in a way that demands constant engagement. With the depth of things, they find shallow conversations exhausting. Not from arrogance, but because their mind is always prepared to go further. And it tires quickly of stopping at the shore. So the next time you see someone quiet, sitting still while others perform, listening while others speak over each other, thinking while others react, don't mistake their silence for absence. Don't mistake their stillness for emptiness. Inside that quiet, something extraordinary is already happening. Nobody is born performing. Watch any small child before the world tells them who to be. They are pure curiosity, pure presence, unfiltered and unafraid. So where does the quiet begin? For some children, the world came in too loud. Too many emotions in the room. Too many unspoken tensions, humming beneath the surface of ordinary dinners, in ordinary silences. And so, they learned to read the room. before they learned to speak in it. They became little observers, watching how moods shifted, without explanation, noticing how words said one thing, while eyes said another, feeling everything, but learning quietly that feeling everything out loud wasn't always safe. So they turned inward, not in defeat, in protection. Psychologists call this environmental sensitivity. Some children are simply wired to absorb more emotion, more nuance, more complexity from the world around them. And in environments where that sensitivity wasn't understood, wasn't held gently, they learned to carry it alone. Silently, carefully, privately. That silence became a room they built inside themselves, a place where their real thoughts lived, where their observations gathered, where their questions, too deep for casual conversation, could finally breathe. And over time, that inner room became richer than anything outside it. This is where the quiet genius is born. Not in a classroom, not in a moment of sudden brilliance, but in a childhood that asked too much of a sensitive mind. And that mind, rather than breaking, built something extraordinary. In the space between what it felt and what it could say, the silence wasn't a wound. It was architecture, a carefully constructed interior world, where depth became a language, and stillness became a home. In that home, no matter how loud the world grew, was always theirs. Science has spent decades trying to measure genius. IQ tests, achievement scores, processing speed, academic performance. And yet, some of the most extraordinary minds never scored highest on any of them. So what is actually happening inside the quiet mind? In the 1990s, psychologist Elaine Aron introduced a concept that would quietly reframe everything: high sensitivity. She discovered that roughly 15 to 20% of the population is born with a nervous system that processes experience more deeply than others, not more emotionally, not more anxiously, more thoroughly. Where an average mind receives information and moves on, the highly sensitive mind pauses, connects, cross-references, finds the thread that links this moment to 17 others, stored quietly in memory. It is not slower, it is deeper. Neuroscience adds another layer. Research shows that introverted, deeply processing minds have higher baseline activity in the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for complex thinking, careful decision-making, and long-term planning. They are not disengaged. Their brain is running a more sophisticated internal program than what the outside world ever gets to see. And then there is dopamine. Extroverted minds are energized by external reward, social validation, quick wins, immediate feedback. But the quiet mind responds more to acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter activated by reflection, by focus, by the slow pleasure of thinking something through completely. Their reward system isn't built for applause, it's built for depth. This is why they don't chase the spotlight. The spotlight feels thin to them, momentary, unsatisfying. What satisfies them is understanding something fully, creating something real, solving what others gave up trying to solve. Their mind is not a liability. It is a finely tuned instrument, calibrated for precision, not performance, for truth, not noise. And in a world addicted to noise, that calibration is rarer and more powerful than most people realize. There is a particular kind of pain that has no dramatic name, no visible wound, no moment you can point to and say, that is where it happened. It is the pain of being consistently misread. It starts early. A teacher marks them distant because they didn't raise their hand. A parent worries they're too quiet. A classroom rewards the loudest answer and overlooks the most considered one. And slowly, without anyone meaning harm, a message gets delivered. The way you are is not quite right. They are called shy when they are simply selective. They are called arrogant when they are simply precise. They are called cold when they are simply careful about where they place their emotional energy. And here is where it becomes complicated. Because the quiet genius processes deeply. Remember, every misreading lands harder. Every dismissal is filed away, examined, turned over quietly, in that interior room. Not with bitterness, but with a kind of slow, heavy wondering. Is something wrong with me? Or is the world simply not built for minds like mine? Many of them spend years trying to perform extroversion, speaking faster, laughing louder, shrinking their thoughts into bite-sized pieces that feel acceptable in casual conversation. And it exhausts them, not because socializing is painful, but because pretending always is. There is a psychological term for this performance: masking, hiding your natural cognitive style behind a socially acceptable version of yourself. And research shows that long-term masking doesn't just cause fatigue, it causes a quiet erosion of self-trust, a gradual disconnection from the very instincts that make them extraordinary. So the wound isn't dramatic. It is cumulative. 1,000 small moments of being too much and not enough at the same time. Too deep for small talk, not loud enough for recognition. Too thoughtful to be spontaneous, not spontaneous enough to be liked easily. And yet, they survive it. Not because they became harder, but because that interior world, that quiet room they built so long ago, held them when the outside world couldn't. The world mistakes stillness for stagnation. It sees someone quiet and assumes nothing is happening. But still water runs the deepest, and the quiet genius has been running deep for a very long time. While others performed, they observed. While others reacted, they considered. While others chased immediate validation, they were building something no one could see yet. And that invisibility, that long, patient, unglamorous season of silent preparation, is precisely where their advantage lives. Think of bamboo. For the first 4 years, a bamboo plant shows almost no growth above ground. Nothing visible, nothing impressive, nothing that would make you stop and take notice. But beneath the surface, it is building a root system. So deep, so vast, so quietly fortified, that when it finally grows, it grows 90 feet in 6 weeks. This is the quiet genius. Psychologists who study long-term achievement have found something that surprises people. Raised on the myth of the overnight success, the most sustained, most meaningful, most revolutionary contributions almost never come from the loudest person in the room. They come from the one who thought longest, who questioned deepest, who refused to move until they understood not just the answer, but the reason behind the answer. Their advantages are not loud, but they are formidable. They notice what others miss. The small inconsistency, the overlooked detail, the quiet fault line, running beneath a seemingly solid plan. They make decisions with a patience that looks to others like hesitation, but is actually the most sophisticated form of risk assessment. They build trust slowly, but when it is built, it is unshakable. Because people who have been deeply seen by a quiet genius never forget it. And when they create, whether it is art, or science, or a business, or a single conversation, that changes someone's direction. It carries weight, because it was never made for applause. It was made because it needed to exist. And things made from that place from necessity rather than performance, from depth rather than desire for approval. Endure. This is why they win. Not in a single dramatic moment, not with an announcement, or a celebration, or a standing ovation, but in the long arc of things, where patience outlasts urgency, where depth outlasts noise, where the bamboo, finally quietly, reaches the sky. This chapter is not an analysis. It is not a framework, or a psychological term, or a research finding. It is simply a letter for the ones who have always known. They carried something deep, but were never quite sure. The world deserved to receive it. You were never too quiet. The world was simply too impatient to wait for what you had to offer. You were never too slow. You were moving at the speed of understanding, which has always been faster than it looks. From the outside, you sat in rooms where your silence was mistaken for emptiness, where your stillness was read as absence, where your careful thinking was called hesitation by people who had never once paused long enough to think carefully about anything. And you wondered, quietly, privately, in that interior room you built so long ago, if something was wrong with you. Nothing was wrong with you. You simply saw more, felt more, processed more, carried more than most people ever knew was there to carry. And you did it without announcement, without asking for credit, without needing anyone to validate what you already knew. In the quiet places of yourself. That is not weakness. That is a rare and extraordinary form of strength, the kind that doesn't need a witness to be real. There will be rooms that will never understand you, conversations that will leave you feeling like too much and not enough. Simultaneously, people who will look at your stillness and see nothing when you are standing there, holding everything. Let them look. Your depth was never for everyone. It was always for the right ones. And the right ones, when they finally find you, will recognize you instantly. Because depth always recognizes depth. You don't need to be louder to be seen. You don't need to perform to be valued. You don't need to shrink what you carry to make others more comfortable with your presence. The world needs exactly what you are. Not a quieter version, not a more palatable version, not a version that has learned to take up less space in conversations that were never big enough for your thinking anyway. The world needs the full, unedited, deeply feeling, quietly brilliant version of you. The one that notices what everyone else walks past. The one that holds space for complexity in a world desperate for simple answers. The one that creates, not for applause, but because something true needed to exist. In the world, you are not behind. You are not broken. You are not too much, or too little, or too anything. You are exactly what the bamboo is. In the quiet season, before the world gets to see how high you will grow. If this reflection felt familiar to you, if something in these words touched a part of you that rarely gets touched, know that you're not alone in carrying this. There are more quiet ones than the world admits. More people sitting in rooms, feeling like their depth is a burden, when it is in fact their greatest gift. If you like to stay connected to this space, to these reflections, to a community of people who are also learning to trust the quiet in themselves, you are welcome here. This channel exists not just as content, but as a place where the hidden corners of the human mind and heart are explored with gentleness, with honesty, and with deep respect for everything you carry. If something in this video moved something in you, consider leaving a word below. Not because you have to, but because somewhere, another quiet soul will read what you wrote and feel less alone in their stillness. Your words have weight, even the quiet ones. You deserve to be seen, exactly as you are. Take care of yourself.